So this is a operational video of the new Yamaha 25 horse 4-stroke that we installed. This was meant to just go over the general operation of it and to show to anybody else that's going to run this on how it works. It's a little different than the other motor. So this new setup has a fuel water separator filter installed in it. The primer bulb to pump up the system is here. Obviously the battery is the same setup. Fuel tank is here. The new tanks are a little different as well. They have a pressure release valve in them that is part of the vent system, so this tank does not vent to the open air as the old one did. So this is open, but it's actually not breathing until it reaches a certain pressure. So you may see this tank change in size and shape a little bit if it's out in the sun. We do recommend when they're not in use to take the tank out just by unclipping the connection, which is similar to the mercury fitting, but it is different. I also should have noted you should crack the cap before releasing this, especially if it's under pressure, to keep fuel from leaking. So and then there's a gauge on it here. This motor has power tilt on it, so the motor will go up and down with the button. It's a good idea to keep them out of the water when not in use. Keep any algae growth off of them, zebra mussels, anything like that. Obviously it's easy just to hit the button and run them up when you're done with them for the day. There is an additional button on the back side here. If the boat's out of the water for servicing, you can use that button. Normally when you're running it, if you're in deep enough water, you'll want it all the way in the down position. And on the key switch here, or under the key switch, there's a stop lanyard, which the mercury system had a switch, but this has to be hooked up underneath the pin there. If it is not hooked up and you turn the key on, and you get that little warning horn going off. So that indicates that this is not connected. There are two keys with it. The other one is in with the owner's package. So this motor is fuel injected, so you don't have to do anything different to start it other than just turning the key. There's no choke, there's nothing to it. Just turn the key on, wait a few seconds. Anytime the engine starts, you want to check to make sure there's a stream of water coming out the back. One other thing to note, in the front there, when you first start it, you have two warning lights that light up. They'll both go off. One on the left, oil pressure, the one on the right will overheat. If the motor overheats, you'll get the warning horn that goes off in the control box, and also the motor won't run over 2,000 RPM. But just a word of caution, that system doesn't go into effect until above 2,000 RPM, so if you're just idling along, it won't trip that alarm. Or excuse me, you won't trip the low RPM alarm. You will have the lights, but the engine won't run any different, but those lights would be on. So so it is electric start. It is also pull start. The cover release is right there in the back. So in addition to the what we call the boat mounted water separator filter, there's another one on the engine that there's a red ring down on the bottom. If that were to float up, that tells you that there's water in there, and obviously at that point it's probably going to start running poorly. We do all this with the, obviously we have a new tank, new fuel line, new filter. we would prefer you not running any of the old gas. The tanks were not interchangeable, so you'd have to either change the fitting, but obviously with a new motor and new setup, you don't want to introduce any, water or foreign old gas into the system. So that yellow dot there is your dipstick for checking the engine oil. That should be checked probably every few weeks or so. Should be to the top of those crosshatch marks on there. Kind of hard to see here with the focus, but it's all set. They don't generally burn any oil, but just check it periodically, maybe every 10 to 20 hours, something in that neighborhood, and just make sure that's fully seated in there. If you did need to add oil to it, it goes in the cap here in the back. There's a oil filter, which is labeled with today's date, or yesterday's date, I guess in this case, and 0 hours. So we are able to plug in and read the hours on this engine, just to track maintenance and all that kind of stuff. And then the other big thing, so the engine oil should be changed at either 20 hours and or 100 hours, depending on use, or seasonally. So at least every season. I'm guessing you put, probably pretty close to 100 hours in a season. So at some point that should be changed, probably midsummer, and then again in the fall. And then the other real critical factor is changing the oil in the lower unit. The oil drain is here, and that's also the fill, and it's filled from the bottom till it comes out this top plug. Again, another real critical thing, if it freezes with water in it, it's going to crack the case and ruin it. And that is not a warranted item if it cracks the case, because it's a lack of maintenance issue. So if we can get on some kind of maintenance schedule with them, or if you need any help with that, we'd be glad to tell you what needs to be done, or do it, as part of winterizing or whatever happens there. So other than that, there is a fuse here for the starting and the power tilt system. You squeeze this little tab here, and there's 2 fuses in there. One is a spare, one is the one that's in use, so you can pull that out and change it out if need be. If the motor doesn't crank over and doesn't go up or down, it's probably a fuse issue there, which again is not common, but just something to know where it is if it does happen. Once the motor's running, you squeeze the red handle, shift that into gear, back for reverse. You don't generally want to shift this when it's not running, so this is just going to show you. And then of course you do have the up and down for the tilt. It does have this warm-up lever like the old motors did, but with the new motors with fuel injection, you really have no use for that. It will throttle the motor up, but for starting and any other time, you always want to start with it down. And again, just go in and turn the key. So any questions, please let us know. Again, hopefully this can give you some basic information to solve any problems that you might have on the water, or just about general operation of it. So if the battery was dead, also if you needed to pull start it, you do need to have a battery connected even though it's dead. So and then of course the key would need to be on, and then you would just pull the cord probably 2 or 3 times to energize the system, and by the second pull it usually will start, or third pull, but obviously key start is the easiest way to do it. But if you did have to do it manually, it is all there to do. Just make sure your key is on, make sure your lanyard is connected, and then it'll should start up. And from there, the power tilt should work if it's putting out enough juice to the battery. So other than that, if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.